doing is I am just making sure that we have sound included. Sometimes I forget to do that, and that's when the sound's missed. For the videos that I'm sharing today, it's not critical that you hear the sound, but if you are having any problem seeing the video, or you're seeing the slide for 10 minutes and you hear me talking, but the slide hasn't progressed, I hope you share it before the 10 minutes. I progress through the slides very quickly. So today's topic is the reinforcer. Ooh. The reinforcer is something that plays a very important role in your future leader dog's learning. I hope that with this presentation, I can give you some ideas and concepts that'll help you understand and utilize the reinforcer effectively and strategically, okay? When I came up with the title, my daughter Anu says, "Oh, Mom, the reinforcer, it kind of sounds like the enforcer." So please don't take that away. This is all about reinforcement, but I did not think of that, and now it's too late for me to change this. So moving on, as always, I'd like to go over a couple of definitions, not a lot. It's going to be pretty straightforward, but a couple of definitions. First of all, what is a reinforcer? I mean, you know, I think I know what it is. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Sometimes I have to look at this definition again. It's very short, it's very concise. A reinforcer is a consequence. It comes after behavior, and this reinforcer is going to strengthen that behavior. Cool, right? So, for example, if I gave you $100 every time you smiled, would you smile again? I wish I could. I wish I could carry around $100 bills, and then every time somebody smiled, I'd give it to them. But would you smile again? Your behavior was a smile. The reinforcer, I hope, I know for me, money is a big reinforcer, and it's secondary only to my pizza. No, it's before my pizza. but you know, I would smile every time, correct? So type in if you are freezing. Am I still frozen, Linda? Or anybody, if you're seeing me? You shouldn't be seeing me at all, but are my slides moving? Are you guys on the same slide I am? It should have some definitions, because Linda said I'm freezing.
Looks good here, VJ.
Oh, thanks, Barry Lynn. I appreciate you.
I'm okay too.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Sometimes, you know, it does freeze and then it kind of tweaks and adjusts. So thank you, Linda, for sharing that. So that's what a reinforcer is, right? Example, I give you $100 every time you smile. Would you smile? Maybe you need 1,000. I don't know, but I only have 100. What about a primary reinforcer? A primary reinforcer, see, now you're like, okay, VJ, you told me what a reinforcer is, and now you're going into other stuff. But I promise, I'm not going to go too complicated. These are the only 3 definitions, okay, for today, for this purpose of this presentation. So what is a primary reinforcer? This is a reinforcer that an animal needs to survive. It has to have it. So examples of this are kibble, ice, dinner, right? Your learner, which is your future leader dog puppy, they need this primary reinforcer, which is food, water, or shelter to survive. If they don't have food, they're not going to thrive. They're not going to survive, okay? So now, then what's a conditioned or secondary reinforcer? Ooh, so these are stimuli, objects, or events. They become reinforcing to your puppies based on their association with a primary reinforcer, okay? So some examples, markers are secondary reinforcers because they could be visual, verbal, or auditory. People are, places can be too. So if every time when I was a little kid and I went to my grandma's, I got out of the car and my grandma had my favorite chocolate bar in her apron. Oh my gosh, grandma would very soon become my secondary condition reinforcer because my primary is chocolate, that food right there that I love and adore, and I'm hungry after the trip, right? Okay, so I hope this makes sense. And if not, you'll have plenty of opportunities to learn about these coming forward, okay? So remember, reinforcer, it comes right after a behavior and it makes that behavior stronger. A primary reinforcer is what the animal needs to survive, okay? A secondary, it's associated with the primary, okay? So here's a question before we move on, because you know I'm going to do it. What is a secondary reinforcer that all puppy raisers use? Hopefully. Every single puppy raiser uses it. Type it in the box. What's a secondary reinforcer? I'll give you a couple seconds. I think you can. Who said yes? Oh, whoever's MW, you're right. The trainer could be a secondary. Debbie said yes, but all of us, you're right. I did not think, Moni, that yeah, but as people, as we're training with our puppies, as a person, we're kind of a secondary reinforcer, aren't we? They see us and they get pretty excited. But, you know, when we first picked them up, they might not have been too sure, right? So here we go. We've got the primary reinforcers, right? And oh, I love it how you guys are saying yes. And we've got the secondary reinforcer, which is the yes. Now, I want, if you can, and if you could please, type in the chat, give me some reinforcers. Give me number one, put it one, and then whatever the reinforcer is. One means it's a primary. Two, and then whatever the reinforcer is. And let's see what ideas you come up with. I'll give you a couple seconds while I sip my tea because, you know, it's not really that hard. But when I first started raising puppies, I was like, all I know is I'm giving kibble and it works. But when I started learning about reinforcers, ooh, okay, Moni says the block used for train. Good job, Moni. Yeah, that is a reinforcer. What else you guys got? So good job, Debbie. Kibble's a primary. Of course it is. So you guys are getting the picture somewhat, I hope. Here are some other secondary reinforcers that I think could be, all right? The mat. Ah, Deborah, you took it. Or was it Colleen? No, it was Colleen. Yes. The neckerchief. You mean the bandana? Yeah, that could be. So anything that's associated with the primary. So if that mat, we are constantly treating this puppy with the primary, which is the kibble and the treats, every time we whip out that mat, that's a reinforcer right there, isn't it? You're like, oh yeah. Okay, so what is that? If I'm going to pause for a second and yap, because I'm good at talking, I love to talk, while you guys all catch up, because sometimes our slides run, there's a little lag. And this is a video with one of our horses. This is my daughter's horse. We say our horses, but I'd like to clarify. She works with them. I'm the photographer and I play around and try to do some training with them, making myself feel good, but I don't do much. But on this day, she introduced this big green ball to this ball, big guy now. So when you watch this video, I want you to type in, what do you think are the primary reinforcers? What are the secondary reinforcers? Okay, and do it the same way. One, primary, and then list. So if it's kibble, you put, just like Debbie did, one. Oh, yeah, the leash. Okay, the leash could be Moni, a secondary, very good. And then two, if it's a secondary. So here it goes. Let me make sure my sound is up. Not that it matters, but it might. Good job. Okay, first of all, I apologize, the donkey's in the background, but what do you guys think could be primary and secondary reinforcers? So Linda says won the ball. What do you guys think? Is the ball a primary? Remember the definition of a primary. The animal needs to survive, and that's what primary reinforcers are. All right, so Moni says, yeah, that's correct. So the ball would be a secondary. Just keep thinking that if it's a primary reinforcer, the animal or the learner needs it to survive, period. It has nothing to do with the trainer. Your animals, our puppies, I'm going to keep saying puppies instead of animals. Our puppies need food to survive, okay? What other things did you see? Do you think this person could be a reinforcer? And if treat, good job, Linda. Do you think if she is, would she be primary or secondary? Secondary, right? She doesn't really need Anu to survive. Well, kind of, sort of, he does. But if Anu was taken out of the picture, she is secondary. Very nice. Now, when she said good, did everybody hear that? The good, she's used as a marker, and she's also used a mouth click. So you might have heard those. Those would be secondary as well, right? All right, let's go back. So here are some more videos. We're going to do the same exercise. So to give it some context, these two little puppies on the left, they're future leader dog puppies. That is a toy that is inappropriate and they shouldn't have had it, but being puppies, they went into the garage with me and I didn't realize that it was on the ground to the side because my other dog, that's career change, loves Frisbees. And they dragged it out, they jumped in the car. So they didn't even, they just jumped in the car and they started messing around with it. So I wanted to give that, but I want you to watch in this video. The reason I chose it, despite the Frisbee that they were naughty enough to drag into the car, is that there's some reinforcement going on here that's a little different. You ready? And I want you to do the same exercise. 1 primary, 2 secondary. All right, so list it. Here we go. Oh, hold on. Let me change something. All right.
I said, don't do it. I'm going to touch your face. You can do this.
Okay, so despite the noises and the commentary from my family in the back, what are these two puppies being reinforced by? And is it a primary reinforcer or secondary? It's a kind of tricky one, but what do puppies really like to do and is reinforcing to them? It's self-reinforcing actually, right? There's no kibble here. There's no food involved. There's no water. There's no shelter or mouthing. They are mouthing and it's reinforcing to them, right? Why? Puppies love to bite. That's how they play. Touching. Yeah, there you guys go. Do you think that toy could be reinforcement? Well, we're going to see in this next one. Social behaviors. There you go. Good job, Coordinator Laura Fisher. Okay, so here I'm going to play another video. And I want you to be real careful here when you watch, because remember, you're looking to see, is it something that's a primary, that this dog here needs to survive, or is it secondary? All right, ready? Here it comes.
Hi.
Okay, so when I say primary and secondary, I'm hoping that with the conclusion of this video, it's becoming more clear. I picked both these videos because they didn't have kibble in it. But you can tell that in all of these instances, in these two instances, all the dogs are very reinforced. So what is the reinforcement in that video? It's play, right? It's the Frisbee. Now, was it always reinforcing to that dog, to Griffin? Nah, he could care less. But he learned to be reinforced with that, and we learned to play with him by using a primary reinforcer, which was our food, right? So we're going to go forward because otherwise they're going to play again our videos. So with that, if you have any questions about what a reinforcer is, start typing it into the chat. We're going to hit on those at the end of the presentation. And I'm eyeballing the chat as well. If I see something is really critical, I'll pause and I'll answer those. And if you have something that's really confusing, unmute now and ask your question. I'd be more than happy to answer it because the next part involves how reinforcements come into play, okay? So I'll give you a couple seconds. I bet you can imagine I'm sipping my tea. All right, moving on. Looks like no questions. So for reinforcement, these three items I've picked out very strategically: timing, delivery, and the choice. Now, why is timing so important? Well, it's really cool. If you give something too soon or too late, it takes your time training right off track. It kind of derails it. So by too soon, if you're looking for your puppy to sit, and if you already have kibble in your hand, is your puppy really going to be thinking about the word sit that you're saying or watching your hand? Because you've already got the kibble there. So that kind of like puts a little twist and off the track for the learning, right? Okay, but what about the too late? I'm gonna bring Petunia back in. So if I've got Petunia and I'm teaching her how to sit, Petunia is my make-believe dog if you haven't been in other presentations. So Petunia is a great puppy and she's learning how to sit. And I say, Petunia, sit. She sits, she looks beautiful. And then my family comes and says, well, are we having for dinner pizza, Mom? You know, I always have to say pizza. Or are we having something else? Are we going out? And I start talking to them. And Petunia's sitting down, looking at me. And then after about 15 seconds, she says, okay. And she moves on. She goes and starts sniffing or getting a toy. That's too late, isn't it? That's a little bit too late. So timing is critical. The rate of how you reinforce is also critical. So when we're doing our relaxation protocols, when we're doing loose leash, which are all duration behaviors, our rate of reinforcement when we first teach a puppy relaxation protocol, we might be giving a lot of reinforcement to start every 2 seconds, maybe in between the things we do in relaxation protocol, because the puppy's just learning. But as our puppies get older, we might decrease that rate of reinforcement. We might wait for 5 seconds, for 15 seconds before giving them a treat while we're doing relaxation protocol, while they're settling. Same thing with loose leash. We'll walk in, every step we're treating. Our rate of reinforcement is every step. It's increased to as much as we can give, maybe every half step. But as our puppy gets that game of loose leash, we can decrease that rate of reinforcement, okay? What about delivery? When we deliver, imagine if you're a UPS driver, delivered right all the way. I think someone's got their mics on, so I'm gonna pause a moment. If you could please, everyone check and see if you have your mics on and turn it off, whoever's got it on, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, okay, getting back to the UPS driver, he's delivering that package, end of the driveway, and I know no better. It's been decades he's been doing that. One day he delivers it right to my front doorstep. I'm like, huh? This is really cool. So when we deliver, it's kind of like a very important piece. Our puppies, we deliver to our left heel side. So before we even say, puppy sit or Petunia sit, Petunia goes to heel side because she says, okay, I know it's coming right here. But what if Petunia has always been treated in front of me? Right? Well, Petunia's going to come and sit there because she knows I'm going to get it there. Just like if I know that my package is coming at the driveway, I'm going to walk all the way down there. But if my package is coming right at the door, I expect to have it right there. So what also you can think of this as that when we're training things as mat behaviors or crate training, which are all covered in virtual sessions, but when we're doing those pieces of work with our puppies, we can place reinforcement, jerky, treats, whatever is reinforcing a Kong for our puppies in the crate. And then the puppy follows. That's a placement, right? Okay. The last piece that I want you to remember when it comes to, well, there's so many things, but for this presentation, the last piece I'd like you to consider is the choice of reinforcer is definitely related to the environment and to your future leader dog puppy, okay? So I'm not going to use people because I've used this example of our poor puppy development many a times about Candy, but I am going to use an example of the future leader dog puppies I've had. One of my future leader dog puppies loved ice. I could treat him with ice. That held the highest value for him. Another one of my puppies worked beautifully for kibble. I did not need anything but food. It could be pretend food, and my puppy would be like, oh, she probably has that magical imagination kibble in her hand. So it depends on, and some puppies just don't want food at that moment. And that is when you have to look around in the environment because the reinforcer that we're giving has lost its value for that learner. That learner right now at that moment has no value for that reinforcement. So you could bring out the ice, you could bring any food, and the learner's gonna not even want it because of the environment. Maybe there's something distracting. Maybe there's something fearful. Maybe your puppy's tired. That is your indicator right there that if your puppy is not taking reinforcement, there's something going on in the environment or surroundings. All right. So another time for you guys to participate, hopefully. If not, participate in your mind. Importance of timing. We're going to talk about that. We talked a lot about the rate of reinforcement, about how you can give your puppy reinforcement in your hand before you even say the cue, about how I cannot give Petunia reinforcement and then she's moving on because there was nothing. So here, there's two pictures. The first is a puppy. She's looking at me, I'm looking at her, but was my timing right? What was I doing there? The second, the same thing. Is my timing right? What was I doing there? It's hard to tell, right? It could be, maybe she sat and I marked and I gave her the treat. It's hard to tell. I'm going to be honest and tell you guys that for that picture where this little puppy's sitting, I was trying to hold kibble in my hand so she would maintain that sit. So I was cheating because I needed her to take a picture. So I'm going to be honest, but it's hard to tell in the picture. Now for the second picture, I'm cueing touch, okay? So when would that placement of reinforcement come in, that timing? Would it be after the nose touch? Definitely, right? So timing is critical. It's hard to tell by pictures, right? What about placement? We talked about where you place your treat is most likely where your puppy is going to go, right? So we have this sweet little puppy here. He's right between the legs of this razor. Do you think that if they reinforce right here, this puppy's gonna hang out, this little shepherd puppy, and just settle there? Most likely, right? This is from one of our correctional facilities. And with limited space, it really helps when the puppies can just go underneath tables or in between the razor's legs, right? So this razor is probably hoping to eventually have him settle in between his legs or under him. So he's starting off really well there. Now, when we see this beautiful golden and this razor sitting down, it really looks like that the placement has been in left heel for this little puppy, right? Not little puppy, big puppy, but still a puppy. So placement is critical. That heel position is so strategic that you'll find your puppy's not even waiting for you to give the heel cue. Your puppy has been reinforced so many times in heel that they just hang out there. All right, value of reinforcer depends on the learner. So we talked about primary, secondary, but now all of these puppies in here have something that they are either into, excited about, and only one of these pictures has a reinforcer that's puppy, future leader dog puppy approved. Can you guys type that in for me? And then we'll talk about primary and secondary. And it's pretty cool. But it's also, there's a couple in here that are not, I mean, they shouldn't have these as future leader dog puppies for their own safety, correct? So what are they? I see that flat frisbee. Do you guys remember the frisbee previously? Why are frisbees not allowed? Well, our toys are approved for a reason, because of their durability and their safety. Top, middle picture, yes. Colleen, thank you. Ice is appropriate. That's a great reinforcer. All right, so now that we know the one and only reinforcer that is appropriate for our future leader dog puppies, I'd like you to give me just one example of a reinforcer in this slide and let me know if it's a primary or secondary. You don't have to list them all. So I'll start because Colleen already mentioned that the top middle is leader dog reinforcer improved for our future leader dog puppies. That's Ice. I'm going to say that's a primary. Moni said 2. Yeah, that's a stick. It's a secondary. This dog doesn't need a stick to survive, does it? Unless they're building a little, no, never mind. We won't go there, me and my jokes. But yeah, the stick is a secondary reinforcer. What else is a secondary reinforcer? Or a primary frisbee? Yeah, Debbie. I was like, gosh, guys, I said it. What about this little fluffy puppy that's going towards that tennis ball? Is that primary or secondary? Yeah, and this puppy with these two little puppies looking at the cookies that they shouldn't be having, primary or secondary? Yeah, very nice. Okay, so before we end on reinforcers, I am notorious about wanting to give as much information as I can. But here's the thing. There could be another presentation because reinforcers have a lot to learn about. But for this presentation, I did want to talk about the timing, the delivery, and the placement. But before we leave, I'd also like to talk about distance, duration, and distraction in relation to your reinforcements that you use. The reason I'm saying is because distance, duration, and distraction is going to come into play a lot, as you learn with your future leader dog puppy. You may have heard from a lot of our coordinators that distance is your friend, give distance. You might have heard a lot about duration. You might have heard, I hope, a lot about distractions and how to deal with them, right? So let's start with distance. When you are close up to a distraction with your future leader dog puppy, have you ever encountered that your puppy refuses the kibble, refuses to acknowledge you, is still focused on the distraction in the front there when you're close to it? Have you ever experienced that? I don't know. Like you're really close, you come into class. I've got Petunia and Petunia's only like 3 months old, but all the class dogs that are in my group are 14 months or 12 months. There's about 6 of them. They're all looking at Petunia, and I'm trying to give her her favorite jerky, right? And she's refusing it. So distance plays a critical role because that's my indicator that she loves this jerky. She would do anything, but she's not taking it. So I take steps back. I give distance. That reinforcer that's been refused has given me a clue that right now, right here, it's not helping. So let me give a little bit of distance. Let me go a little bit further and see if I can get my puppy's attention. What about duration? That plays a critical role as well, the reinforcer, right? We use it a lot. We talked about it in timing. To build duration, a reinforcer is critical, and it plays into effect with the variable reinforcements you give. It also plays into effect building that duration, right? So when we start out our mat training, oh, I love to start out mat training because guess what? It's the coolest thing. I mean, it's just so adorable. And when you go out in public, you think you're the coolest trainer because they're sitting on mat. But it's a simple duration behavior that's been reinforced so much that it comes with time. So distance duration. What about distractions? Right? When you have a distraction, you're working on a lot of things. But your reinforcement, you have to be very thoughtful, very careful that one, if you offer it, is this even a moment that your puppy's going to take that reinforcement? Do you have to give distance? Have you worked up to this distraction? So before using your reinforcer, bear in mind distance, duration, and distraction. We want our reinforcers to be effective. We want them to be powerful, but they lose this effectiveness if we don't keep in mind the distance, the duration, and the distraction. Okay. As always, thank you very, very much for joining us. I've tried to keep this session very short. This is our whole team, our team that loves razors, loves puppies, and loves to work with you. So if you need anything at all right, even if it's to talk about focaccia bread, which I don't think any of you would call us for, but all jokes aside, please reach out to your puppy counselors, your puppy coordinator, and puppy development if you need anything. Our sessions, we are so fortunate. They are presented and supported and sponsored by Premier Pet Supply. They have locations in Beverly Hills, Canton, Livonia, Northville, Novi, Rochester Hills, Shelby Township, and Troy and West Bloomfield. The most exciting thing about that is as a puppy raiser, you get 20% off. So I'm going to stop sharing, put my camera on, and then if anyone has any questions in relation to a reinforcer, please let me know. I'm going to get up my chat. It looks like there's some chat. All right, so it looks like some of you have already left. And Miss, where did you go? Oh, Moni, yeah. So Moni, it's Premier Pet Supplies, And if you go online, you can find the different locations. We do have one that's closer to Leader Dogs. It's on Rochester Road and Auburn, right? Rochester Road and Auburn. So it looks like you guys don't have questions. So thank you for attending. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend coming ahead. Oh, I'm so sorry. I see a hand raised. Whoever's got their hand raised, I see now that it's Colleen. Please unmute Colleen and let me know how I can help.
VJ. I just had a question in the chat. Is a dog's desire for human interaction considered primary reinforcer or still secondary?
That's a great question. I would love to believe as a human, I'm a primary reinforcer, but we're secondary. And the reason we're secondary is if you think about it, you know, do they need us to survive? Yes, they do, but we're not really the basics. So if a dog was living in the wild, could they survive? They could, right? Quote unquote. So we're not really considered a primary. I'd like to think we are, but we're not. Does that help? Or are you still going to debate it? I think
That's fine. I go back and forth on it.
I do too. I know what you're saying. But no, it's not considered a primary.
Okay.
It could become a secondary though, right? Because
Yes.
every time they see us, person, remember my grandma and the chocolate? So yeah, but that's a good question. We're always going to be secondary to the
Okay.
kibble. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks for that question. It feels like either I did a wonderful job. Oh, Dave says, did I hear you say that kibble should not be in my hand when I say sit? Definitely. Definitely. Why do you think, Dave? Do you want to unmute and talk about it?
Well, I assume it's going back to what you said earlier, where the reinforcement would be too soon. The dog is seeing the kibble before the word sit is spoken.
So I'm going to put a twist for you, Dave, because I haven't had that many questions and I really like twists. So let's say you don't have your pouch, okay? Because I forget sometimes, but you do have a bag of treats, right? And you don't have any pockets, okay? At that moment in time, I put my leash, and I'm going to give you my own example. I put the leash on my puppy. I've got kibble in my hand, but the kibble is to my side or behind. Does that make sense? So I'm not showing the kibble. The puppy knows it's there, correct? And this was an emergent situation because BJ forgot her treat pouch. So I have kibble. It's not, I usually put it here. I put it here or I put it behind. Okay, so is kibble in your hand bad? Definitely not. But if I'm holding a cookie or kibble in my hand and I say sit, and clearly the dog is watching my hand, is that puppy really listening to the cue, which is the verbal cue sit? Or is it focused on that? So that's where the placement and where we have to be a little bit strategic when we're doing our sessions with our puppies. There's a lot of, it depends too. So then there's a lot of twists too. So, but that's a great question, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, you guys have a wonderful one. I appreciate you tuning in on a weekday at lunchtime. And if you need to review this, this is recorded. And feel free to contact me or anyone in puppy development. We're happy to talk about reinforcers at any time. Have a wonderful one, guys.